This is Indie Business Podcast, episode 85. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Indie Business Podcast. I am your host, mentor, and coach, Donna Maria, the founder and CEO of the Indie Business Network. My goal is to help you build a solid business foundation, increase your income, and use your business to create the life you love. In this episode, I interview Christine Mineart of Scent Nudes in Oakland, California. Shortly before the pandemic lockdowns, Christine and her friends decided to create a day centered around making their own perfumes and then visiting a local perfume museum. They ordered all of the supplies, set a date, and then bam, the pandemic hit. But while COVID-19 may have forced the friends to postpone their girls' event, it inspired Christine also to start her own fragrance business. In this episode, you'll hear the entire story, plus get some tips on how to integrate meaningful life experiences into your brand in ways that truly connect with your target buyer. But first, this episode of the Indie Business Podcast is brought to you by the Indie Business Retreat. Join me in January for a transformational time of learning, growth, and fun at the beautiful Club Med Miches Playa Esmeralda in the Dominican Republic. Enjoy snorkeling, sunset cruising, and the opportunity to strategize in paradise as you formalize your plan for an amazing new year. Reserve your spot before they're all gone at indiebusinessretreat.com. You can get a summary for this episode at indiebusinessnetwork.com/85. And now let's welcome Christine Mineart of Scent Nudes in Oakland, California. Christine Mineart of Scent Nudes in Oakland, California. Welcome to Indie Business Podcast.
Thank you for having me today.
I'm so excited to have you for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is, well, first of all, Oakland is like one of my favorite cities in the whole entire universe, but also fragrance. Like I have a passion for scent. I love everything that smells good. I seem to have no allergies to any fragrance ever at all. And I talk to so many people who have that. I can smell stuff all day long. And your business is Scent Nudes. And I immediately was like, for a variety of reasons, okay, I want to smell, I want to sniff, I want to talk. So let's dive in, Christine. Tell us a little bit about how you started your business.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a shorter story, but I started this last year during the pandemic. And so Scent Nudes, I first launched in October of 2020. That was when I first, opened up my Shopify site and invited people to kind of come and check out what I'd been making. But leading up to that point, it was pre-pandemic, but me and one of my girlfriends here in Oakland, we would do kind of, girlfriend meetup nights. And she had just gone to a wedding and smelled a handmade perfume on another mutual friend of ours. And she came to me and she's like, Christine, we should have a perfume meetup with all of our friends. We can all go in, split the ingredient pricing, the cost of all the ingredients, make a perfume together, and then we can all go to Mandy Aftel's Curiosity Museum. And so we were planning this. I, bought Mandy Aftel's book and just read it and loved it. And I kind of bought the starter kit. I was getting going. And then, the pandemic hit. We never had this lovely time with our friends. But I had kind of gotten myself set up and started blending with all natural perfume kind of materials. So that's, just essential oils and absolutes and resins and all of these really just beautiful extracts from the natural world. And so I started just playing with blending. I have a past as a pastry chef and also as, a scientist working in a lab. So it came pretty naturally to me as another kind of artistic medium. And so I was blending, but I had also, in the year prior, had started tinkering around with this idea for a history of women's health, women's sexuality, like digital magazine. And I had just started doing like little designs for this and had kind of tag marked the name Sent Nudes for that project, thinking like, oh, that's kind of a fun play on like, modern hashtag, social media culture, but having like, let's go back and look in like art history and political movements and whatnot, and kind of come up with a cool designs magazine to kind of tell those stories. But as soon as they started blending, things started to click together. I was like, oh, this is kind of a cool, intersection, because there's so much of that history in the history of perfumery and fragrance in culture and just if you go way back and just read, stories of how, ancient fragrance is to humans. So anyway,
Yes.
that's how I kind of like, I took the Scent Nudes name and kind of came up with these few blends that were a little bit, reflecting of some of these stories I'd maybe wanted to tap into. And then it was kind of, I knew that I was kind of tapping onto something that I wanted to share out. And so that's the longer story, I guess.
That is so great. And like, I can't even write down my questions fast enough because there's so much meat there. Like, first of all, I love how you have combined like your professional history in the chemistry field with your professional history as a pastry chef, and the mixing and the beakers and the sort of stirring and stuff that goes on in both of those fields have led you to this whole new business.
Yeah. So I had a baking business. I guess it was 2013. I had Surf Muffins, which was my first entrepreneurial endeavor. And I sold at farmers markets based in Joshua Tree, and really loved having that business. And it was a total blast to kind of just get that set up and operate
Surf
that for a little bit.
Yes. Okay, so these were muffins that you eat, that they have like a beach theme or a surf theme?
Yeah. And it was, that's how it started. I ended up making more than muffins, but how
that works, right?
Yeah. And so that there was also kind of a similar ethos to this business. And, I was at the farmer's market. I tried to source as much as I could from the other farmers in the market. And I like dove deep into just where ingredients come from, down to like grain. Like, can I find a California grown milled flour? Or so that to me is, I love that part about also running this kind of business, is understanding your sources and really learning about, where these materials come from, and try and be really thoughtful about that and connect with producers, because I think that, lends, as the creator, you're a little more thoughtful about what you're using, but also just the craft and quality of the product. If you're really understanding your materials and where they're coming from, I think that just ends up creating like a more beautiful, refined kind of end product too.
It does make it a richer experience for you as the maker, but tell us a little bit about how that impacts the way your customers and your buyers see your products.
Yeah. So with natural perfumes, if for those that, maybe aren't super deep into fragrance, there's a lot of different materials you can use in perfumery. Two big kind of buckets that people use are like synthetic and naturals. And naturals means, it's, a rose absolute, or, it's, an essential oil of, coriander, whatever it is, where a synthetic is, it's created in a lab. It can mimic natural fragrance molecules. But it also, just opens up this whole new world of, all the different, molecules you can have to kind of create these unique scents. But in means of production, then obviously synthetics can be produced at a lower cost, and naturals, because you're going in, for a rose absolute, however many thousands of petals of roses to go and, that gets made into just 1 milliliter of material. So when you kind of, as a customer, you might see, one of my perfumes, going for quite a bit more at a cost than something that's made with synthetics. And it's, I definitely, I love working with botanicals mostly because I kind of connect with them energetically. And for me, as the kind of the artisan, I love to me, that's part of the art, is like connecting with these botanicals that come from the earth, that have significance across, thousands of years to other humans. And that to me is part of the beauty of the natural fragrance. There are some synthetic fragrances that smell amazing, but that's just like a totally different, I guess, product and craft. And so that's definitely, part of my process is, as I'm, seeking out kind of the highest quality materials, that's going to be reflected to a buyer in price.
And they understand that because you probably convey that in a lot of your marketing. And I would imagine that your attitude and your the richness that you feel comes across when you talk to your customers and your audience about your products and how they're made.
Yeah, definitely. For me, that's the biggest part of this is I love sharing the sources and the process and the inspiration. So it is more than just, kind of creating a fragrance for sake of fragrance. For me, there's a lot. There's the art and the energy of it as well.
Oh gosh, it sounds so intriguing. And you talk about the process, and I'm really curious what you mean by process, because we have another thing in common too, and that is we've taken the Mandy Aftel introduction to perfumery, which is, can I just pause for a moment of praise for that woman?
Yes.
She is extraordinary. And how jealous am I that you live across town and you can go to the museum? Did you ever end up probably not, right? Because it's closed for the pandemic.
Well, yeah. So actually, I've never taken her course. I've only read her materials.
You got the book, the introductory book, right?
No, I bought one of her, I think, which one Essence. I've got
Essence and Alchemy.
Yes. Essence and Alchemy is the one I read through. But yes, I did. I was
amazing. She's amazing.
Yes. It was beautiful. She's incredible. I did get to meet her briefly. I went into the museum right before the pandemic hit and she was in there.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah. She just, her collection of books and just all of the little natural objects in the space is really wonderful to go explore.
I can only imagine. I saw she did a little tour on Instagram so people who couldn't come could get a feel for it. And it was really, really wonderful. So in terms of your process, how did you, so your girlfriends were going to have this great time and the pandemic interrupted that, which kind of interrupted so many things. And then you just kind of said, okay, well, I'm going to do this. How did that happen? Tell us a little bit more about that process.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very curious, and I have a lot of different, I guess, creative outlets. I like to paint, the pastry chef work. So there's a lot. I'm always kind of learning new things, getting curious about, things that I can create and means of expression. And so this just became a new curiosity for me. And like I said, as far as some of the skills, because I, had worked in labs and kitchens, were very just second nature. So the whole act of the blending and, being cautious with your materials and creating stock dilutions, that all was something that, I just got everything kind of set up very quickly and felt really comfortable with working with the materials. And for me, then I could kind of start to jump into kind of creative, ideas with it. So Love in the Time of Corona is the first one I blended. And it's actually, I would say, by far the most popular blend that I have. And that, funny enough, came from this friend of mine that, she had smelled this perfume on her friend. And so she emailed her and sent back a list of like, I don't know, 15 or 20 different botanicals that she had used to blend it. So I had this list. This was just like the first list of some I was like, maybe I'll try something using this palette. And just started, working in this, kind of like limited palette of materials that this other person had said they really loved using. And that's where that fragrance came out of. So that one is kind of it's really beautiful, but also that was kind of a fun, kind of creative bounce with friends. Like, to me, it's very much on like friendship and relationship. And so for me, that process, like I just had this limited palette and was just started to play with, different base notes or middle notes, and ended up kind of coming out of it with something really beautiful. Or like a different, example of process, Heaven's Mouth, which is one I really love wearing. There's this movie, Y tu mamá también, and at the end of the film, there's just this like stunning beach that this group has been traveling towards throughout the movie. And it was, the name of the beach is Boca del Cielo, which is Heaven's Mouth. And so for that, like that beach has always been just a standout, just one of these, just like beautiful, inspiring spots that you sometimes see in film or in travel. And so that one, I was like, ooh, let's kind of think about, being in, that space, maybe going to like one of these little bars nearby and having a paloma. So pulling in, grapefruit and lime, and, thinking about, there's probably like a little bit of jasmine in the air. And maybe the air is a little musky and sultry, and using it. So there's ambrette at the base of that, which is, the seed of a hibiscus, which is also, a flower that would probably be seen there at that beach. So for me, that was like this kind of fun exploration to like, ooh, let me imagine all these botanicals that would be in this space that you'd experience in different ways, and kind of layering them together.
And so like, was Love in the Time of Corona your first blend?
It was one of the first ones. I think I was blending a few different things at the same time, but it was definitely one of the first things. Like I had a couple different concepts at that time that I ended up not developing. Like, there was, and that one ended up being kind of a standout. When I was first starting to blend.
That's so amazing. And I'm at your website. I see the scents. There's such unique colors. Like I see a deep blue for the bedtime stories, and different shades of like tan and like a amber kind of color. So tell me a little bit about how you, tell me a little bit about how you like integrated these parts of yourself and what you were creating into this interesting and intriguing business name, Scent Nudes. And for those of you who aren't looking, I want to describe it. It's the word scent, but it's spelled S with a space and then E-N-T. So where the C would be, there is a blank space. So it's Scent Nudes. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. And so I explained a little bit earlier that name was kind of a placeholder I had for this other just kind of like digital design magazine project. So that's where like the past tense of the Scent Nudes came from. I mean, Scent Nudes is kind of like, ubiquitous in our kind of online culture now. And so that was the tweak of it, like thinking about it in the past tense. For me, I guess was kind of this play on like remembering to kind of look backwards at like inspiration. And also though, for the fragrance, for me, taking the C out, fragrance is something that we feel, but it's invisible. So that's kind of, a play to that. And especially here, Scent Nudes is a natural fragrance brand. I disclose all the ingredients. So that's kind of like the nudes part. So it's all natural. everything's transparent about what I'm using. And it's kind of just, it has that kind of fun sensuality to it.
So there's an overlap of
Yeah.
a lot of different ideas there. Because
Yeah.
I have to tell you, like, I know at the beginning of our conversation, you said you explained it, but the reason I asked again is because I'm dense. I didn't get it. And so, and let me just tell you, when I first saw the
Yeah.
brand name, I went to the website and I was like, so intrigued, of course, because fragrance,
Uh-huh.
right? But then I also
Yeah.
said, like, what is I understand the C being missing, but why? And then, my first thought was
Yeah.
like, is she sending nudes? Like she sent some nudes.
Uh-huh.
I just was trying to figure out
Yeah.
exactly what it
Yeah.
was. And so sharing and hearing you sort of describe that. And I did notice that you have all of your ingredients disclosed on your description
Mm-hmm.
page, which is a nice tie-in to the idea of um, the nudity and the transparency
Yeah.
of being able
Yeah.
to do that.
Totally. Yeah. And also I think, a part of the brand ethos is, loving the
Mm-hmm.
body that you're in and thinking
Yeah.
of these, like adorning your skin.
Yeah.
Because fragrance is something that, again, you can wear that can't be seen. So,
Right.
trying to bring those values in subtly, just in
Yeah.
and just, the imagery, or just kind of the
Yeah.
feel of the brand overall.
I definitely think you did that. So I have to ask you about one of the
Yeah.
most amazing things I've ever seen, which is this mixtape. Okay,
Yes.
everyone. Okay, listen, like this is not, there's so much story here. There's so much to
Yeah.
bite into. It's not that anything is just a fragrance, but it's not just scent.
Yeah.
It's a combination of emotions, which brings in music. So tell us a little bit about
Hmm.
this mixtape volume 1.
Yeah. So I knew when I started blending, for me, music has always been a very strong influence in my life, from going way back. I was born here in the Bay Area, but grew up in Seattle and was up there, going to shows from like a young age. And so I love music, and knew I would want to have playlists to go with each blend. So I kind of already knew that when I was starting to put the fragrance together. I love just, um, you know, being able to experience creativity and art through all the different senses. And so fragrance, I think, lends itself well to being paired with something like music. Um, and so was kind of, already making these playlists as I was blending. And then I was thinking about, the packaging I wanted to do a sample set, and I wanted to kind of keep in line with the transparency. And so I had been looking at, okay, do I do like a clear pouch, or what am I like, just thinking in that vein. And I was mood boarding, and I
Mm-hmm.
kept noticing I kept tagging cassettes. There was like a Chanel purse that was like a
Mm-hmm.
cassette tape, I think back in the 90s. And I had that on like my mood board. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, what if I actually just use the cassette tape? And, I don't know, this is like aging me probably quite a bit, but like I remember, a boy dropping a mixtape off on my parents' porch when I was like 14. Like a little cassette tape of songs that he made for me. So
Oh
like,
my gosh, I
yeah.
did that too. I did that for my
Yeah.
boyfriend. Oh my gosh.
So like mixtapes for, it's interesting because there's, the generation where it's like, we actually did make mixtapes on cassette tapes,
I
but
know, how about that?
yeah, but that's still held through culture. Like people still will, make a mixtape, even if it is a digital collection of music, or that, that phrase mixtape
Yeah.
really resonates with a lot of people. So
So
yeah,
are
I
these like,
decided to make a
this is
mixtape.
4 cents, or are they
Uh-huh.
like, is the mixtape on Spotify, or is it a real cassette tape? I
Yeah.
mean, what is it?
There's no real cassette tape. So you just get the cassette case and your fragrances are inside of it, but there's liner notes. So I've designed liner notes, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
QR code for each fragrance in the liner notes that takes you to Spotify for where the playlist is at.
We are all about innovation here at Indie Business Podcast. And to me, that is the definition of it when it comes to um, fragrance. I mean, I just have not
Yeah.
seen that combination anywhere else. It's brilliant and
Yeah. Thank
also a
you.
lot of fun. And it's so fun to
Yes.
combine the digitalization or the
Mm-hmm.
digitization of our society today with something as ancient as perfumery,
Yeah.
with something that's in the
Yeah.
middle in the mix there, like a cassette tape. Um,
Yes. Yes. And like that's,
Fantastic.
thank you. Yeah. I mean, I love that. I'm like that. I love old everything. Like
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
records. I love, collecting vintage items, and I love
Hmm.
learning about history. But I think there is a cool intersection where we can kind of hold on to those
Yeah,
kind of quality and like bring that into a modern space and
it's way
have fun
cool.
with it. Thank you.
It's so cool. And just imagine in another few years or even now, like cassette
Yeah.
tape players probably cost way more than
Yeah.
they did when we had them because they're like vintage now, like LPs. They're,
Yes.
eventually going to make a comeback. So tell us a little bit about the
Yeah.
magazine and how this fits into your brand.
Yeah. So I did a what I call a mini magazine in February, and this was I just have it up as a digital copy on the website. I haven't totally forayed into producing print magazines for sale yet, but that had been something I was playing with, a couple years ago. Was Oh, I really like
Mhm.
this the idea of a magazine. And at that time I was like, oh, I want to tell stories of like women's health or sexuality or movement or just kind of all these ways of being in your body and stories
Mhm.
behind them. But I was like, oh, I really like I had for February, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just put together a small collection of practices on kind of feeling and experiencing love. And that's what the mini mag on the website is all about.
Mhm.
So I practice yoga. I have a history of being a pastry chef, but also just I'll teach cooking classes at yoga
Mhm.
retreats. So there's like a recipe. There's a couple yoga poses. There's some arts practices. So it's just like a small collection of ways to kind of tap in,
Mhm.
using across senses. Because again, fragrance is this very sensual experience.
Mhm.
You smell it, but then you feel something, or maybe you think of a song. And so, yeah, this collection is just kind of, yeah, ways you can kind of tap in and find just like love in your life. Not necessarily romantic, but just experiencing love.
So the overlap between all of these experiences is fascinating to me because so often when we are talking about fragrance, we are really talking about experience. But what
Mm-hmm.
you've done is you've obviously, if I buy your perfume, it's going to be my experience. I mean, no matter how you
Right.
describe it, it's still going to be my experience. But what you've also been able to do with your brand, it seems to me, is layer your experience on top of that in a very tangible way. Like I can download a magazine. Maybe soon I'll be able to buy it, put it in my
Mm-hmm.
hands. I'm not sure from what you just described, but at least I can download your thoughts
Yes.
on
Yeah.
on these lifestyle things, which then can sort of bleed into my use of your product.
Yes. Exactly.
So
Yeah, and that's kind of
is
the
that like
idea. Yeah.
intentional? Is that an intentional? Because again, like a product is a product, like a perfume, a
Uh-huh.
soap, a lotion, a cup of
Yeah.
coffee. At some level, they're all maybe not great, but none of them are awful. So
Right.
when you overlap your impressions on the product, do you think that helps to sell it?
Well, I mean, the magazine isn't necessarily saying like take out your scent nudes perfume
Hmm.
and do this. Um, it's definitely more practices that might not even mention
Hmm.
fragrance or perfume in them. For me, I guess for me, I wanted this to be more than a product. I want scent nudes as a whole to be
Right.
kind of embodying, how do you experience life?
Hmm.
And actually, like one of this individual I buy a lot of materials from, who's really incredible.
Hmm.
John Steele, he sources some of the most beautiful extracts.
Yes.
I was talking to him last week, and he said, it can we were discussing a certain botanical, but he was like, finding the extraordinary and ordinary moments and understanding that there is, radiance to be had at any time. And that kind of is what I'm, working to kind of build with Scent Nudes is maybe you spritz my perfume and it shifts your moment for you, and you kind of find beauty in just, walking through the hallway. But also just kind of, putting other pieces of inspiration out there for people to find kind of the radiance in every day.
And I think there's such a lesson here, though, for entrepreneurs as well, to see that a product is a product. And I understand what you're saying when you say the magazine, for example, is not like, go buy my stuff, go buy my stuff. But there's a lifestyle association with it, which draws people in, right? So the exploration of that is fascinating to me, because as artists and entrepreneurs, we cannot be just selling a product.
Right.
Not only does it go against our nature, it's just not kind of what makes our hearts sing, but the combination of having a product that complements things that are intangibly and emotionally maybe life enriching is where you can tap into a real connection with another person and be more than just the provider of a product to them, but actually help them live a better life.
Yeah. And that's, I'm still, I'm in early phases of building this. But that is kind of the bigger vision there, is to kind of keep integrating more of these experiential practices and experiences, not just, they'll, with products, but other means of experiencing the brand and kind of being able to learn something from it as well.
And in a lot of ways, Christine, it's also experiencing you. I mean, does that feel vulnerable in any way? I mean, you've described so much of what is meaningful to you, your background, just in this podcast in the past few minutes. Do you feel like sharing a bit of who you are feels like a natural expansion of what it is that you're creating with this brand?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's kind of, I guess, as if you're going to say as an artist, that's always part of it, is when you make a painting and put it out in the world, it's probably incredibly personal, and, you're kind of leaving it up for people to be like, oh, I don't like that color, or I think it's messy, or, whatever people are, if they, don't know the story, or, but that's part of, creating art and putting it out into the world is, you are putting a piece of yourself out there, and that is vulnerable. But that's, I mean, kind of with anything in life, if you're connecting with other humans or choosing to opting into society, you're gonna find you're gonna have to kind of hold true to yourself and take in whatever kind of comes at you. But I think for me, that was really important with building the brand too, is I knew for me to care about it, it had to be essentially an art, an expression of myself, just like any other kind of piece of art I might be making.
It's very intriguing. And I think it's one of the most exciting things about entrepreneurship today is that it's such a natural, with technology, it's almost natural to do that. Sometimes you have to remember that you're doing it, because you're just living your life, right? It's just so connected to what it is that you're creating. Christine, how long does it take you to conceive of and then end up with a final perfume creation in your hands?
That depends. I am so, like I said, inspiration based. which is a little hard sometimes. Like I could technically sit down and like blend something. Some things, I mean, like Love in the Time of the Corona came together so elegantly, like that I was probably just blending, I want to say maybe a month, like of doing different trials and coming back to it and tweaking it. But I still have little, concepts I've had and just different ideas that I still have in vials that I'm still working on, and started those maybe like 9 months ago. So,
Right.
So it all depends on the the magic of having the inspiration and kind of picking up the right materials and blending them together. But I mean, generally, if like say I spend like a month kind of toying with an idea, then I've got that kind of recipe ready to go, and I can scale it up and we'll kind of make the first fragrance kind of compound or base, whatever you want to call it. And that's just, the mix of those, of the pure like absolutes or essential oils all together. Let that age for a little bit, ideally like a few weeks to, a couple months. And then, kind of just, diluting that down with the ethanol and letting that kind of simmer on its own for a bit, and then following. So that's kind of the general process of actually coming up with a concept, coming up with the formula, and expanding it.
That's so fascinating. And I love to hear you describe how it is inspiration driven, and you don't feel this. Apparently, you don't feel this need to go, okay, I need a new scent for the spring and I need a new scent for the month, and I got to hurry up and get it done. That you really sort of allow the inspiration to flow, and that makes the experience that much more rich, I would think, for your customers.
Yeah, for me, I'm definitely not putting myself to be pushing new products out. For me, that like material wise, that's it doesn't make sense to be kind of constantly buying new different materials if I don't need them. Kind of just staying streamlined on that front. I do have.
Oh my gosh! Does that mean that you're not like addicted to buying the new materials? Like, I love the fragrance so much, and I love that we can get oils and we can get absolutes, and the thickness and the richness and the texture of the different materials is so fascinating to me.
Yes. No, I mean, I do have a good, when I was first getting started, I built up a decent library. So I have some good stuff at home. It is. I of course could always want more, but
I know.
I try to be really thoughtful, and if I really want to smell something, like Eden Botanicals, they'll let you buy like a sample size of almost any of their naturals. So if I really am wanting to check something out, I'll get like a few samples from Eden.
Oh, Christine, you are hitting all the buttons. Mandy, John Steele, Eden Botanicals. Like for people who are perfumers or who love natural scent that are listening, they're probably all like, vibrating right now with this conversation with you, because all those things are so integral to creating scent today.
Right.
The resources.
Right. Totally. And like, that's kind of what I'd mentioned earlier, is for me, like the actual raw materials are what I'm really fascinated by. And that's, as like, the art of it, that's kind of what drives me to use them. But I have two new things I'm doing a soft launch of at the end of May on, there's a full moon at the end of the month, which is the flood moon. So that's like a little teaser. There are two things coming out. And they're going to be they're not going to be quite an eau de parfum, but these ones are really two blends that are really going to be focused on like energetics and vibration, and using fragrance when you kind of want to like shift your own energy into another state. So I'm really excited about those. I'll be kind of starting to post little tidbits about that
Did
on
you
my,
start already? Because I'm on your Instagram yesterday. I
yeah.
saw something about butter. And I saw a picture of a piece of buttered pound cake, it looks like, and a fragrance bottle that
Yeah.
was like almost the color of like caramelized butter. And I was like, like those sorts of deep fragrances are my personal favorites. So are we in for something
Oh,
along those lines?
no, kind of in the other direction, but
Oh,
I
this
was,
was a terrible tease then.
yeah, I was just I was just in the mood for buttered cake. But
Okay, all right.
yeah, no, the what well these next two, I've been going through my Reiki master training over the past 4 months, and so have been working with energy and connecting
Mm,
in with like the botanicals on an energetic level. So these two will will be Reiki charged. One, I've crafted like a flower essence, which is a non-fragrant material, but more an energetic um, material where you can kind of capture a flower's energy and vibration.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So one of them will have a little bit of a flower essence in it that I've made. So it'll be that direction. I'm really excited for them since that it's kind of bringing in a couple different things that have been really inspiring me lately.
Yeah. Well, Reiki, which you're just mentioning now, is another dimension of your personality that I know will be infused into
Yeah.
your brand. And Scent Nudes, everyone, scentnudes.com. You got to get a mixtape. And before we go, Christine, I know so many of our listeners really, they love the idea of starting a business. They have a traditional job. And I'd love to know what your thoughts are on that because I know you work outside of your business as well. Can you offer any tips for people who might be, feeling like, oh, I can't start my own business because I have a traditional job? And what advice or encouragement do you have for them?
Totally. Well, so I've done it both ways. So when I started Surf Muffins, I had just got out of grad school. I moved to Joshua Tree and just like decided to start a business, and I had zero income.
Hmm.
So I've done that way.
But you
And
had muffins, though. You had muffins. So,
and so, I mean, when you're doing it that way, the one piece of beauty about just kind of going all in is the stress is incredibly high, and you've got some, you either have to do it or you don't have any rent money. So, but that's a really stressful way to do things, especially if you don't have like kind of a foundation or, and so that this time around, I work full time and started this on the side. I had that kind of that wisdom from previously. And this time I knew I would start a little bit slower. And by starting something while you're working, one, your basic needs are met. You have that stability piece for yourself. So for me, at least, when I don't have my kind of basic needs met, I can't really be creative. And starting a business, while there is a lot of just kind of you know admin work or operations work, like you do want to be in a creative space while you're designing products or
hmm
designing
hmm
pieces. So for me, it's important to be in a mental space where I can have that creative energy as well. But also just if you're thinking about starting something while you're working, just set realistic goals. Kind of know that you're not going to be able to commit your full time to it, and that you're going to be spending, evenings or weekends or whatnot working on it. And so set realistic goals there. Just know that, okay, I want to have my
hmm
website designed and up. Maybe, if you were working on it full time, you could do that in a few weeks or a month, but no, maybe it's going to take you a little bit longer if you have
hmm
resources, thinking about delegating things. If you have a strong creative vision and you're working full time, maybe you have extra resources. You can kind of delegate some of these more time intensive things. Is like one idea. Um, but yeah, just and know that you're going to go through ebbs and flows where your job might pick up and you might be really focused. And know that just because things might slow down with your personal business for a little bit, that's okay. And that's going to be kind of part of the push and pull. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and just remembering that, your job is supporting you. You're able to kind of have this, amazing opportunity to create something of your own. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's just kind of staying, grateful for both of those things as well.
And it really is possible to do both long term if that's what you want to do. A lot of people think it's like an either or proposition, like you have to quit your job to start a business, or at some point you will, and you don't have to do that.
Right. Yeah. And that's a really good thing to keep in mind is, just knowing like, there's a lot of people who keep the same, two things going for a long time. And maybe your
Mm-hmm.
goal is not to, scaling a business to become your full-time income. If that's a lot of work and that's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of high
Mm-hmm.
stake, and then then you're kind of accountable to keep that going for however long. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so maybe that's not even your goal, and that's totally okay. I think, yeah, people you get into this mindset of like, oh, you have to start the business and that has to be your everything. Maybe that's not what you want to get out of it. Maybe you want to keep it at a level where it's like a really amazing creative side
Mm-hmm.
thing that you're working on, and then you're not stressed about the money piece of it. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you said about how you can't create when you're worried about, so worried about finances that your mind is sort of mushy to being able to make
yeah,
anything else. And
yeah.
so by the way, thank you so much for sharing those words of encouragement. I think as we move, through toward easing our way out of this pandemic, or however you want to describe it, like a lot of people are thinking along those lines, like, what could I do? Or maybe they've started something in the midst of this, and now maybe they are, their employers are changing things and maybe going back to sort of quote unquote normal. And what do I do with this new thing that I've created? And I love that you talked about how you can pace yourself essentially and do both if you want.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Well, Christine, I just downloaded your magazine and I'm so
Oh,
excited to see this. Again, I just want to encourage all of our entrepreneurial listeners to think about how you can, create other sorts of experiences to complement the products. This is beautifully done. Did you design this yourself and actually do it yourself?
yes, I did.
And there's a great recipe in here. I have all the ingredients here in my house, so I'm going to
Oh,
make it. There's a
amazing.
great recipe. And are these pictures of you doing the yoga poses?
Yes.
You guys, can you see the infiltration, I should say, or the overlap between who Christine is and the brand that she's created is extremely inspiring. And it's also something that automatically makes it completely unique from anything else in the universe. And I think the lesson there is tremendous, Christine.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been really lovely to talk to you about it. Like I said, it's still new, so it's wonderful to start sharing the story of Scent Nudes with others.
Well, the way you describe it, it's always going to be new
Yeah.
because when you're inspired, you will create something new and then it'll always be new. And I think that's just a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for sharing with us, everyone. Scent Nudes, SENTNUDES.com. Check it out, obviously, online. Get your hands on this magazine and that amazing mixtape. And follow Christine at Scent Nudes on Instagram as well. Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Well, I hope this episode of the Indie Business Podcast left you inspired, motivated, and excited about the future of your small business. Let's quickly review 3 of the most significant business insights Christine and I discussed today. First, integrating your authentic self into your brand. Christine shared that for her, the scent creation process is an extension of something or experience that inspires her. It is not the result of feeling the need to create a new scent. The infusion of who Christine is as a person highlights the artistic nature of her work. She compares it to an artist who creates a painting. The artist and the resulting work are integrally connected. A current tangible example of this is how Christine plans to integrate her training as a Reiki master into her next fragrance creations. Number 2, creating a magazine. Christine's Scent Nudes magazine is truly innovative, and it's not just another publication. It's a reflection of the fact that Scent Nudes stands for more than a lovely scented product. It also stands for a particular kind of way to experience life. Through the publication, Christine intends to spotlight the inspiration and radiance that can be found in the everyday. This is a strong compliment to her brand. I encourage you to think about how you can use the content you create to reflect a similar experience for your best buyers. And number 3, leading a business while employed full-time. Christine's advice to anyone interested in doing this is to start slow and set realistic goals. She described how difficult it is for her personally to be creative when her basic needs are not met. If you start a business while you have a traditional job, you are not constantly worried about how you're going to provide for yourself. And this gives you the mental space you need to create and not be so stressed out all the time. Well, if you're listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, won't you do me the honor of rating this podcast? It helps me so much to know that you appreciate the amazing people and stories featured on the Indie Business Podcast. You can also share episodes from my blog at indiebusinessnetwork.com to your favorite social media outlets. I will see you on the next episode of the Indie Business Podcast. In the meantime, enjoy your life, build your business, and have your way.